Hello everybody, it's Non-Scene News here, and today we've got a lot of broken dates today. So the first news coming today is coming from Russia, where we'll be really quickly covering over the Russian updates. So the first update we're going to be covering over coming from Russia is that we've got a news that a Russian Soyuz 2.1B rocket carrier launched military satellites into space. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see the Soyuz 2.1B carrier rocket launching military satellites into space to provide information to the Russian military. So Russia launches a satellite into space. We've also got news that Russia has closed its Polish consulates in St. Petersburg. Russia has ordered the Polish consulate in St. Petersburg to close in retaliation for Poland shutting down the Russian consulate in the Polish city of Poznan. The Russian Foreign Ministry reported. We've also gotten some news that obviously Tucker Carlson interviewed the Russian foreign minister. We've been talking about this for about 2 days now, how Tucker Carlson, the American journalist, interviewed the Russian foreign minister. So if you haven't watched the interview, I'll just give you some key takeaways that the Russian foreign minister gave us. So first, the Russian foreign minister stated that Russia doesn't want to escalate. Hope its signal to the US in the form of the oceanic test was taken seriously. Russia is ready to send additional messages to the West if it fails to draw the necessary conclusions from the oceanic launch. Russia wanted to convey to the West by testing the oceanic missile that it will do everything to protect its interests. The US knew about the oceanic test in advance and didn't see anything really dangerous in the test launch. Moscow will be ready to use any means to prevent the West from inflicting, I quote, strategic defeat on Russia. Talks about a limited nuclear exchange are an invitation to a catastrophe that Russia doesn't want. Russia sees no reason why Moscow and Washington can't cooperate for the sake of the universe. Russia does not think about war with the US and does not want it. Such a war could be nuclear in nature. The most important thing for Moscow is to avoid it. Western statements about Russia's lack of red lines and their shifting are a very serious mistake. Russia and the US are not officially at war. What is happening in Ukraine is a hybrid war. Russia wouldn't have started the war in Ukraine if the West and NATO and Ukraine followed the Minsk agreements. Russia does not intend to destroy Ukrainians. They are brothers and sisters of the Russian people. Trump is a strong man who doesn't like to put things off. He is friendly in conversation, but that doesn't mean he is pro-Russian. There are several channels of communications between Russia and the US, but they are mostly related to the issues of prisoner exchange in both countries. To Carlson's question about who makes foreign policy decisions in the US, the Russian foreign minister stated that I don't want to guess. That's a question for Washington. The US and the UK and other nations are openly reported to be supporting Islamist groups in Syria. It's a complicated game. So that's all kind of the key takeaways from the Tucker Carlson and the Sergei Lavrov interview. We've got news coming from the Russian Defense Ministry that more than 300,000 servicemen have undergone training in reserve regiments, which prepare contract soldiers for participation in the special military operation. That's all the news we've gotten from mainland Russia. Now let's go to Belarus, where we've got news that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Minsk for the Supreme State Council meetings. So Russia's President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko at the Palace of Independence met in Minsk. So So Russia's President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko met at the Palace of Independence in Minsk, the capital city of Belarus, and Russia and Belarus signed multiple and mutual security guarantees pacts. So I'll really quickly again go through the key statements from this huge meeting between the two union states. So Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, asked Putin to deploy the new weapon systems on the territory of Belarus, including the Oshnik ballistic missile. The Oshnik can be placed in Belarus in the second half of 2025 as its production increases, Putin. So by on the second half of 2025, Putin stated that the Oshnik, new Russian hypersonic ballistic missile, will be transferred to Belarus in the second half of 2025. The Oshnik ballistic missile will enter service in the strategic missile forces of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and in Belarus in parallel, Putin stated. In Lithuania and Poland, NATO forces are being also converging on the border with Belarus. This is a greater threat than on the border with Ukraine, Lukashenko stated. Putin said that almost all issues on the integration of the Russian Federation and Belarus, which caused disputes, have been agreed on. So this is a very interesting statement. So I don't know if Putin, and Lukashenko have agreed to integrate both Russia and Belarus. So this is just this is just what Putin said. He said almost all issues on the integration of the Russian Federation and Belarus, which caused disputes, have been agreed on. So I'll keep you updated on that. And the last statement is coming from Putin. So he said that the military political leadership of Belarus will determine the targets of the potential enemy to be hit by the Oshnik missile from the territory of Belarus. So that's all the big statements coming from the Belarusian and Russian meeting in Minsk in the Independence Palace. So very interesting news. Now let's go to some Ukrainian news. So we've got news that Sweden and Denmark have announced a significant order for the CV-90 MKIIIC infantry fighting vehicles with 40 units designated for Ukraine. So in the near future, or in the future, Sweden and Denmark will give Ukraine 40 units of the CV-90 infantry fighting vehicle. We've also got news that Finland has sent Ukraine Finland sends winter equipment, worth $25 million to Ukraine's armed forces. So Finland has transferred a significant shipment of winter equipment to support the Ukrainian armed forces, obviously in the winter. The estimated value of the replaced equipment stands approximately 25 million euros. We've also got news that the Netherlands allocates 22 million euros to Ukraine for air defences and the cyber resilience projects announced by the Dutch foreign minister. The next news we've gotten is that Zelensky has announced that the second round of F-16 fighter jets have arrived in Ukraine. So again, we don't know how much. I think it was six brand new F-16s are now in Ukraine, stated Zelensky. So we don't know if these F-16s have designated pilots ready and trained to obviously fly and conduct combat missions. But again, we don't know. All the news we've gotten right now is that Zelensky has announced a second batch of F-16s have arrived in the territory of Ukraine. And the next news we have received is coming from a new weapon coming from Ukraine. So Ukraine has unveiled the new Pleko missile drone. So Pleko in Ukrainian translates to hell. So Ukraine has unveiled the new Hell missile drone. It has fixed wings and an external jet engine. It's launched by air, so it's dropped by an aircraft or something like an F-16 or something, or MiG or an Su-24. It has apparently seen 5 combat uses before, so it has a range of 700 kilometers and a speed up to 700 kilometers an hour, filling the role of the Storm Shadow missile and the French Scalp EG cruise missiles. But apparently to the Ukrainian sources, because this is a Ukrainian produced weapon, this weapon has no restrictions, so it has no target restrictions from Western countries, because obviously this is produced by Ukraine. So we can probably expect in the near future that Ukraine may use this weapon. So if we just actually measure out 700 kilometers to into Russia, so the Ukrainian new Hell missile, the missile drone, could roughly hit this range into Russia. And obviously, as we said before, because it's produced in Ukraine, it will have no Western range restrictions. So, very big news. And the next news we have received is coming from the Italian Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. So, they stated that Zelensky will have to make a conclusions by accepting some conditions if the Russian offensive in Ukraine continues. So the Italian Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister is acknowledging that Ukraine may have to give up territory if the Russian offensive continues in Ukraine, and this kind of goes co-in-hand of what Zelensky said now. So Zelensky stated in an interview with Kodo News that our army does not have the strength to retake our territories militarily. This is true. We really need to find a diplomatic solutions, the president of Ukraine stated in an interview. He noted that this will be possible only when we know that we are strong enough to prevent Russia from launching a new offensive. In particular, for this purpose, he again called for inviting Ukraine to NATO. And the next news we have received is coming from Romania. So we've got news coming from Romania that the results of Romania's presidential elections first round have been repealed by the Constitutional Court of Romania. The court stated that the process must be redone due to the alleged Russian meddling. So Romania's Constitutional Court have repealed the results of the first round of the presidential election in Romania, mass media reports. So I'll keep you updated on this situation. Now let's head to Hungary. So we've got news that Hungary vows to help Donald Trump quickly end the war in Ukraine. The Foreign Minister of Hungary, Peter, claims peace has never seemed so close, adding that we're doing everything to make sure Trump's goal of ending the war is a reality, stated the Hungarian Foreign Minister. And now we're going to head to Germany. We've got news that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have called on Ukrainians to either start working or go home. The Chancellor stated that we need to encourage Ukrainians to return or start working. Too many have been here in Germany for long enough, in fact, and now they finally need to start acting. According to Olaf Scholz, he discussed the issue in great detail with Zelensky, and Ukraine intends to create a Ukrainian agency in Germany and Poland that will help Ukrainians either return to their homeland in Ukraine or work in Germany. And the next news we have received is coming from France. So we've got news that trade unions rally in the capital city of France, Paris. Protesters demand Macron, so the president of France, Macron's resignation. Also, they demand higher wages and social guarantees. So we can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see huge amounts of protests and trade unions protesting and demanding Macron's resignation, higher wages, and social guarantees. So now let's head to Georgia. So it is now day 8 of consecutive protests in Georgia and the capital city of Georgia. So opposition's protests continue in the Georgian capital following the suspension of the EU accession talks. Rioters continue to attack law enforcement officers with fireworks and lasers, and there's even been some videos released of rioters throwing Molotov cocktails at police and enforcement officers. And now let's head to Syria. So we have received the most important news coming from Syria today. That's first, we'll just start off with some statements coming from the Syrian president Assad Bashar. So Assad Bashar has urged the NATO country of Turkey to intervene to stop the rebels, and also sought weapons and intelligence help from other countries, including the UAE, Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq, but has so far been refused, said the Syrian security officials and the Arab officials. We've also got news that the Iranian foreign minister has also said that Iran is fully prepared to support the Syrian government, people, and army as much as necessary. And now let's go down to the ground. So as we talked about yesterday, the Syrian rebels have recently captured the Syrian city of Hama, and within Hama, the military field, the Syrian rebels have captured several MiG-21 aircraft. So we can see here in the bottom left corner footage from the captured Syrian Air Force base near the city of Hama. The terrorists seized several MiG-21 aircrafts in varying conditions. Some are equipped with a number of aerial bombs, so they're pretty much ready to use. But the thing is, it seems that most of these Syrian rebels obviously don't have pilots to actually use these aircraft. They've also captured Mi-8 helicopters, and along with MiG-23 aircraft. And probably the biggest news we have received from Syria is actually coming from southern Syria. So we've got news that Syrian government control over southern Syria have completely collapsed. Rebels have uprised in southern Syria, catching the National Syrian Army completely off guard, along with the Russian Aerospace Air Force. So we've got news that Syrian rebels have completely uprised and managed to capture the National Syrian Army off guard. And due to this huge uprising, major cities in southern Syria have already been captured, like Nawa and Dal and Azqada have been completely captured, along with other cities here. We've also got news that the head of the HTS rebel leader, so the rebel group leader in all of green, the rebel leader managed to gain an interview with CNN. So CNN made an interview with the HTS rebel leader, where I'll just say his key statements along his interview. So he first stated that he wants to make, obviously, the government of Syria an Islamic government. He also said in this CNN interview that minorities will be protected. The rebels learned to be good and coordinated army. He has apparently grew out of his ISIS days and now is wise now, and is now ready to take and fully control Syria and govern it. And the last statements come from Syria is that the Russian embassies, along with Chinese embassies in Syria, have called on Russians and Chinese to leave Syria as soon as possible. And the senior Iranian officials to Reuters reported that Iran is likely to send military equipment, missiles, and drones to Syria immediately due to the dire situation in Syria. And that's all the news I actually have for Syria. We've got some news come from India, that India has successfully launched the PSLV C-59 space rocket. So you can see here, India has launched a space rocket carrying the Prabha 3 Sun observation satellite. This rocket launch was launched at the Satish Dhawan Space Center in India. So if we see this footage here, the Indian rocket, the Indian space forces managed to deliver a satellite to space. We've also got news come from Bangladesh that in Bangladesh, huge riots are being reported. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, students are marching throughout Bangladesh to condemn the recent attacks on Hindu homes, temples, and businesses in Bangladesh. So the protests demand justice for the victims and accountability for the perpetrators, and stronger protection for religious minorities in Bangladesh. We've also got some Chinese news come today that China has imposed sanctions on 13 US arm companies over Taiwan sales. So you see this list here in your bottom left corner. This is the 13 US companies that have been sanctioned due to the recent US sales to Taiwan over arms. And the last news come today is coming from the White House press secretary. The White House press secretary of America stated that we remain in Syria to prevent ISIS from returning to power. So that is the reason why America stays in Syria, according to the White House press secretary. And that's all the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-Scene News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.